This is a recording for Module 8 review. Module 8 covers working with advanced functions, so we will be looking at things using the if function again. We've already used that. We'll be using the and the or with the if function, talking about what structured references are in formulas, using the nested if function. VLOOKUP again, we've already covered that before. This time we will be adding HLOOKUP to that. The if-error function, some more conditional formatting, and summarizing data using the COUNTIF, SUMIF, and average if. So let's go ahead and get started. Make sure you have your notes in front of you as well as the Excel worksheet that we will need. Okay, starting with the review, I have my employees workbook open and my notes open also. This review assignment talks about determining employee data for employees' work anniversary, comp days, bonus eligibility. We'll also be calculating bonus amount for eligible employees. So number 1 says open the workbook and save it as MBHC employees. So you can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to leave mine here. And we'll start with number 2. In the employee data worksheet, rename the Excel table as employee table. So we have already covered how to do this, but let's do it again. Go to the employee data worksheet, click anywhere in the table, and we want to rename this table. So we've got Table Tools Design on our ribbon. Come over here to the Properties group where it says Table 1. We're going to click on that and change it to Employee TBL and enter. Okay, number 3. In the work anniversary column, so let's go ahead and find that over here, column L, enter an if function. If the month in the employee's hire date matches the month in the data table's worksheet, cell B4, yes should appear in the work anniversary column. Otherwise, the cell should remain blank. Hint, remember to use absolute cell references to cell B4 because the formula will be copied to the rest of the column. All employees receive a card on their work anniversary. So let's first look at this. We're going to be putting an if function in L2. If the employee's hire date, which comes from column E over here, hire date, matches the month in the data table's worksheet, cell B4. So we'll also be using data from our data tables worksheet, cell B4. So if it matches the work anniversary month, which in this case is 4, yes should appear in the column. Otherwise, the cell should remain blank. So let's start our if function. Okay, so our test here. If, and always use point and click so you get your defined names if anything's already defined here. So if we want to look at the month over here on E2, now notice I'm clicking on E2 because I'm working in the second row of column L. So we'll get it working for one column and it'll copy all the way down. So if, and notice how it put at hire date in there. It picked up the defined name that had already been defined in this table, which is also what we refer to as structured references later. So if the month equals whatever's over here in data tables in that column, I'm going to point to data tables, cell B4. If it equals that, then I want it to return yes, and I'm going to put it in quotes because it's text. And if it doesn't match, I want a blank, so I'm just going to leave, I'm going to do double quotes here, so it puts a blank in here. Now, before we leave this, it told us that we need to absolute that B4 because it's going to copy it down this table column. So as it goes down, we want it to change for each of these cells. So come up to B4, double click it, and click F4, so it puts the dollar signs around both the column and the row. And click OK. Okay, we need to do one more thing here. We need to come up here and because we're looking at the month, the hire date is a whole date. So we only want the month portion of it. So let's come in here right before the reference to the hire date and do month. Let's do open parenthesis and put it around that hire date information so it's only finding the month for that information. And then hit enter. Okay, so now if you'll look, notice how it brings it down all the way. You don't have to copy this formula because this is in a table. So when you do it in one row, it copies it all the way down for the rest of the rows. So let's take a look. We're looking for month hire date 4. Should have a yes. So this one does in row 37. The hire date's 4/3/2015. I have a yes. And row 25, I have 4/20/2007. So I have a yes. So number 3 looks like it's working correctly. Okay, so number 4. In the eligible for bonus column, so that's column M, and I want to be working on row 2 here. We're just going to do the first row because we only have to do it once since it's in a table, and it will copy itself all the way down. So in M2, eligible for bonus, we want to enter a formula with the if function and the or function to display the text no if the employee's pay grade is D or the employee's job status is part-time. So we're checking for two things here. We're checking for pay grade over here in column D equal to D and job status from column J equal to part-time. So let's go back to M2, start our function. We want to use the if function. And here, since we're checking two things in our logical test, we want to put or, because either of these have to be true in order for whatever we put in true to happen. So let's do an open parentheses to group the two things we're checking. So the first thing it said was if the employee's pay grade is D. So come back over here and I want to click on D2, which is my pay grade for that row, and it puts in structured language there. So if pay grade is equal to D, was the first check. Now the next one is job status is part-time. We also want that on this line, so we need to separate it with a comma, so just put a comma. Then we want to go click on J2 for job status equal to part-time. And I put that in double quotes because it's text, and then close our parentheses. So it tells me false is the first check, which is true because pay grade did not equal a D or the job status was not equal to part-time, so it met neither of those. So, but if it was true, we were to put in here the text no. So, no. And then if it's false, we just want it blank. So to tell it blank, you have to put double quotes with nothing in there and hit OK. Okay, so let's check here what we've got going. So if with our or, pay grade equals D or job status equals part-time, okay, so after we check our formula, it looks like it's working. Come over and look at your data in column M. The first one did not match either of the test functions, so it left it blank. But if we come down here to row 5, we have job status is full-time, so that one didn't match, but their pay grade was D. So it met one of the conditions in our test, so it put the no in. So it looks like number 4 is working. Okay, number 5. In the comp days column, which is column N, enter a formula with nested ifs to display the number of comp days that an employee will receive based on their years of service. So we'll be reading in whatever the employee's years of service is, column F, and then we want to come over here to data tables in our comp days table and bring back the number of comp days they receive based on their years of service. So when I build this, I'm going to start checking here with the bottom first. I'll say greater than 10, then I'll say greater than 5, then greater than 1, and then the only one left would be, this one was 0, anything less than 1. So let's come over here and start our formula in N2. We want an if function. So first we need to look at what we're checking. So years of service. And remember I said the first one I wanted to do was greater than 10 based on that table. So if it's greater than 10, then you're going to bring back, just point to data tables, B11, because that's the corresponding one for greater than 10. Now come down to the value if false. Here's where we need to do another test. So we've got to do another if statement, open parenthesis. So if years of service again here is greater than 5, then, so to signify then, you put a comma, come over and point to data tables, B9. Okay, so greater than 5. So then you need to put another comma because we have to check another one. We have to check greater than 1. So comma, start your if statement again. If, we want to come over back to employee table. So if years of service is greater than 1, then we're going to the data tables and picking B9, and then a comma. And you don't have to say if again because the only thing left is this option. So we'll put a comma and then click B8. And let's close down some of these parentheses. Let's see if I get them right. So I think we need 3 of them. Just back up and look here. So there's 1. So if years of service is greater than 5, then if years of service is greater than 1, there's my second one, and then close them all down. Okay. Maybe we just need 2 parentheses. And this one's telling me it's bringing back 1, so let's just go check it. Okay. So if years of service, this one's 3.5, so it should have brought back, that would fit in here between 1 and 5, so that should be 1, which it is. Now let's see what the problem is here for 15.4. Why do I have 600? So that should only be a 3. So let's take a look at our formula. Oh, I know what the problem is. We did not lock our cells for the table. So let's come back up here to our formula in N2, and we need to absolute these cell references. Update everything there in the column. So let's just take a look here. That one's greater than 10, so that was 3. That's correct, because greater than 10 was 3. Let's check one to see if our 0 was working. Do we have one with 0? Okay, 0 was less than 1. Looking at my data, doesn't look like I have any years of service in here less than 1, so that's why I don't have 0 to check. But otherwise looks like all is working well there for number 5. Number 6, in the bonus column, so column up here, Enter an if function with a nested VLOOKUP function to calculate the bonus for each employee based on whether the employee is eligible for a bonus, which is column M, and his or her pay grade. The bonus information for qualifying employees is a table named bonus table in the data tables worksheet. Format the bonus column with accounting and no decimals. So let's look at what we have here. We go to data tables in the bonus column. We have to check to see if they're eligible, and then we have to come over here and match up what bonus they get with their pay grade, A, B, C, or D. So that's where the VLOOKUP is going to come into play. So let's start our function. This is an if again. So the first thing we need to do is check to see if they're eligible for a bonus, which means in our case that it will be blank. So I'm going to click on M2 equal to blank. Okay, so this one is eligible for a bonus. So in that case, we now need to use our VLOOKUP function in here to go figure out how much they get. So here we're going to use VLOOKUP and open parentheses, and to use the VLOOKUP we have to read in information first, which is the pay grade. So we're going to have to come over here, and I'm working on row 2. So just move myself over so I can see the pay grade, and I'm going to click on D2 so it puts the pay grade in, and then a comma. Now the next part of a VLOOKUP is where do I go get the data? So we need to go to data tables, and we need to select this bonus table. So I'm just going to select that, which was A14 to B17. Puts bonus table in there because this one's already been named, comma. The next thing I need in a VLOOKUP is the column index. What part am I bringing back? My table had 2 columns. So in this case, I want column 2, so I'm going to put in a 2. Okay, and then a comma, and the last part of a VLOOKUP as always, is this an exact match or an approximate match? And remember that is a true or a false. Now the default for VLOOKUP is true. So I'm going to go ahead and put true in there. And close that parenthesis. And if it is false from our if function, if it's eligible for a bonus, they don't get anything. So we're just going to put a 0 there. Okay, so let's see if this worked. Okay, so the no should be blank, should be 0, so that works. So this one has a pay grade of B, so they should get $300. If I look at it, yes. Okay, this one's different, so let's see what column 6 is. Pay grade is C, so it should bring back 600. Okay, so number 6 seems to be working, the if function with a nested VLOOKUP. Okay, number 7. In the years of service column, I'm just going to select F2 because that's the column we're working with. In this years of service column, modify the formula to include the if error function and display the message invalid hire date if an error occurs. Test the modified formula by changing the date in E2 from 710 to 1710, then auto-fit the column. Okay, so let's go to years of service column. We have a formula up here, and it wants us to put an if error function around it to display a message if they put in bad data. So an if error just wraps around what is already there. So come up here and click on your formula bar between the equals and the parenthesis, and let's type in the function if error. Okay, and then let's put another open parenthesis. Now go all the way to the end of that function And let's put a comma, and then the error message that goes with it is invalid hire date. So in double quotes, we're just going to type that in. Invalid hire date, double quote, and then a close parenthesis, and then hit enter. Okay. So notice it did it all the way down because it's a table. So now to test it, let's go change this from 7/10 to 17, which is an invalid month. Hit enter, and I get an error message in there instead of some just error message. It just says invalid hire date, so it tells you what's actually wrong with it. So go back and let's change that back to a normal date, fix it, and it clears up that message. So that's number 7. Now it also says to auto-fit that column. So that just means selecting the whole column and double-clicking here once you get the double-headed arrows so that it all is expanded. Now going back, I just noticed that I forgot to format the bonus column that we did in number 6 for accounting format. So let's go ahead and fix that. Let's go to the bonus column, which is this here. And we want to format that with accounting format and no decimals. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. So we have the if error message working for number 7. Number 8, in the worked anniversary column, so column L, which also uses the hire date, modify the formula to include the if error function and display the message invalid hire date if an error value occurs, and auto-fit the column. So again, just the same thing we did with number 7. Click on L2, come up here between the equals and the first part of the function. And we want to start it with if error. And I open parenthesis, go to the very end and put a comma, and then the message. And I close parenthesis and enter. Okay, so that's number 8. Number 9, edit the duplicate values conditional formatting rule applied to the employee ID column so that the field color of the duplicate value is formatted as light blue. Test this change by typing through 3226 in cell A101. Okay, so edit the duplicate values conditional formatting rule applied to the employee ID column. So let's move over and find the employee ID column, which is over here. And we want to edit an already existing conditional formatting rule. So go up to your ribbon, Table Tools, Design, and we just want to come over here to the Home tab, Styles group, drop the conditional formatting drop down and come down to Manage Rules. And here's the one that already exists. So we want to edit that rule. So click Edit Rule. And we want to change the format color, the field color. So let's click Format and come up here on our tabs and choose Fill. And we want our field color to be light blue, which is the 7th color in the bottom row of the background color. The 7th color in the bottom row. Okay, so that's down here on this bottom. Light blue. Then click OK, OK, Apply, and OK. And to test this, it wants us to go to cell A101 and change that number to 3226. And it turned it blue because obviously that means there's a duplicate in here somewhere. So there's our 2 duplicates. Number 10, in the employee analysis worksheet, go to that worksheet, enter the COUNTIF function in cells B3 and B4 to count the number of part-time and full-time employees, respectively. Count the job status column in the employee table. So we're going to be referring back to the employee data. Go to the very top here. Looking at the job status. So we're going to be counting how many full-times we have and how many part-times we have. So back to the employee analysis table. So let's start with B3 and let's start our formula. And it told us a count if. So I need to search that one. It's not in the list down here. Count if, there it is, okay. So the first thing it asks us for is the range, the cells that we want to include. So let's come over to our employee data, and it's based on this job status column. So I can just click on the whole column and then come back to my criteria. And I want to say if it is full-time, and I don't just want to type in full-time, I want to go with what's here. So I'm going to click on whatever's in A3 and click OK. So it went out and read that I have 89 full-time employees. So let's do that again for B4. Let's see if we can just copy this formula down. Okay, so let's double check it. So it used the same column, which is correct, and it's checking for full-time from A4, so that's correct. So I don't have to rebuild the formula for number 10. Number 11, in cells C3 and C4, enter the SUMIF function to calculate the total salaries of part-time employees and the total salaries of full-time employees, respectively. Format the salary column with the accounting format, no decimal places. So let's go to C3 in our employee analysis table, and let's start our function, and we want SUMIF this time. So I'm just looking, and here's mine. So I have to give it a range to check for. So again, they're looking at the job status. So I want to come back to employee table, employee data table, or employee data worksheet. Click on column J for the job status. And then the criteria is whether they're full-time or part-time. So if they're full-time, then what do I want to add up? What am I summing? So I'm going to go back to employee data because I want to add up their current salary. So I can come over here and click on K and OK. So there's total salaries for full-time employees, and then I can just copy it down. And then I need to format these two to accounting no decimal. Okay. Number 12, in cells D3 and D4, we want to use the average if function to calculate the average salary of part-time and the average salary of full-time employees. Format the average salary column with accounting no decimal. So basically the same thing as SUMIF, except we're using a different function, which is average if. Okay, so the range, again, we have to check to see what their job status is. So employee data, job status, based on whatever's here in A3 or A4. And then what range do we want to average? Again, it's their current salary. Enter. Copy that down. Let's format this with accounting no decimal. Let's just go ahead and save it. Okay, so I want to add one last piece here that we didn't cover in the review, but it is covered in the case study, and that is HLOOKUP. Now, we've used VLOOKUP before, but we haven't used HLOOKUP. H stands for horizontal, where V stands for vertical. So it's just the way that the datas are organized. So here's the example that I pulled from the case study, and you can also go look at this in detail in your textbook or your e-textbook. Just go look up HLOOKUP. So in an HLOOKUP, you can tell that the table is organized by rows across this way, as opposed to the way we used to do it with VLOOKUP is we read down a table. So we would have maybe 1, 2, or 3 columns, and the column index would be based on the row that you want to bring back, the column that you want to bring back for VLOOKUP. Now with HLOOKUP, same thing. We still have a table, but when you refer to which row of data to bring back, it's either row 1 or 2, whether you're bringing back the product category or the supplier, or in this case, years of service or the badge color. So make sure you go and look at that in the case study. So just a review of the outcomes from before. We've done an if, we've done an and an or. When they talk about structured referencing, they're just mainly meaning the defined names of the cell reference. So that's why I always use the point and click method, so you don't have to know what they are. It just brings them in automatically. Also, we did a nested if function. We did an if function with a nested VLOOKUP. Here we have HLOOKUP. Again, go look at that for an example. We used the if error function where we just wrapped this around an existing function. We did a little bit more conditional formatting. We edited one that was already there. And we used the count if, sum if, and average if functions to summarize data. So that is the review for Module 8.